The Galactic Confederation research vessel Eternal Seeker hovered silently above the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. Its massive hull gleamed under the distant sunlight, casting long shadows across the cloud layer below. Inside, the main observation deck, Chief Researcher Day stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, his tall grey form reflected in the reinforced glass as he studied the holographic displays of preliminary findings. Another primitive civilization, he sighed, his mandibles clicking with mild disappointment. The sound echoed in the otherwise quiet room. These structures are at least 50,000 years old, nothing we haven't seen before. The observation deck offered a panoramic view of the blue-green planet. Massive island chains and continental shelves were visible through breaks in the cloud cover. The ship's sensors had already mapped several thousand square kilometers, revealing the unmistakable geometric patterns of an intelligent species long gone. Day's assistant, Jin, a smaller member of the Volari species, with iridescent scales that shifted from blue to green depending on the light, scrolled through the three-dimensional data projections floating before her. The materials are surprisingly durable for such an old civilization, Jin noted, manipulating the hologram to zoom in on a particularly tall structure half buried in what appeared to be a dried seabed. But nothing remarkable by our standards. Initial dating puts most constructions between 45,000 and 52,000 years old. Day flicked one of his secondary arms dismissively. Catalogue everything according to protocol. We'll spend 3 cycles here at most before moving to the next system. The ship's computer chimed softly. Atmospheric analysis complete. Composition suitable for 82% of crew species. Radiation levels within acceptable parameters. Prepare the landing vessels, Day ordered. Standard exploration pattern, teams of 6 full documentation protocols. Within hours, 20 exploration pods detached from the Eternal Seeker, their sleek, insect-like forms descending through the atmosphere in perfect formation. The pods scattered across the main continent, landing at pre-designated coordinates, where the largest concentration of artificial structures had been detected. Team 7, led by Day himself, touched down in what appeared to be the ruins of a massive city. As the pod's doors slid open with a soft hiss, the team was greeted by an eerie silence. The city stretched for kilometers in every direction, once mighty towers now broken and bent, streets cracked with vegetation pushing through. Fascinating. Structural integrity, muttered Pak, the team's materials specialist. His bulbous eyes swiveled independently as he collected samples from a nearby wall. These shouldn't have survived this long. Jin activated her hovering scanner drones, sending them in different directions to map the immediate area. The architecture suggests a bipedal species, approximately 1.5 to 2 meters in height. These doorways and pathways would have accommodated such beings comfortably. The team spread out, their environmental suits gleaming under the alien sun. They moved through the ruins with practiced efficiency, cataloging, sampling, and recording. Occasionally, one would stop to examine something of particular interest. A preserved image on a wall, strange symbols etched into metallic surfaces, or the skeletal remains of machines whose purpose they could only guess at. "Look at this," called Naro, the team's cultural anthropologist. The others gathered around a partially intact building. Unlike the others, this one showed signs of deliberate preservation. Its walls were smoother, its foundation more solid. This might have been a place of significance, perhaps a knowledge repository or governance center. Inside, they found rooms filled with dust-covered objects. Some appeared to be information storage devices, though their technology was unlike anything in the Confederation archives. Day ordered. Everything documented but didn't linger. He'd seen countless dead civilizations across the galaxy. This one seemed no different. By evening, as the planet's sun began to set, the teams had established a base camp in what once might have been a central gathering place. A large circular area surrounded by fallen columns served as their command center, with temporary habitation pods arranged in a defensive circle. The air smelled of ancient dust and unfamiliar vegetation. During the evening briefing, the team leaders shared their findings via holographic projections. Most reports were standard: dimensions of structures, material compositions, speculations about the extinct species' appearance and society based on architectural evidence. Then Engineer Tay, a quiet member of the krill species known for their analytical minds, stepped forward. Unlike the others, Tay seemed troubled. "I've been analyzing the energy readings from the eastern sector," Tay said, pulling up a complex three-dimensional graph. "These patterns don't match any known extinct species technology. There's something unusual about the radiation signature." The graph showed subtle but persistent energy fluctuations throughout the ruins. Too regular to be natural decay, too complex to be explained by simple radioactive elements. Day studied the readings briefly before waving them away with his primary hand. Probably natural radiation patterns from the planet's unusual mineral composition, nothing significant. "But sir," Tay persisted, "the pattern shows signs of—" "Let's continue mapping the northern continent tomorrow," Day interrupted, his tone final. "We have a schedule to maintain. The Confederation expects our preliminary report within 2 cycles." The meeting dispersed, scientists returning to their individual tasks. No one paid attention to Jin, who lingered behind, her slender fingers moving quickly across her personal data terminal. No one noticed as she quietly downloaded additional data about the strange energy readings, copying Tay's findings along with several of her own observations. As night fell completely, Jin stood alone at the edge of the camp, looking up at the stars. Something about this planet felt different. The ruins seemed to whisper with a presence she couldn't explain, a sense that despite appearances, they weren't truly abandoned. She couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in the darkness, something was watching them back, measuring and evaluating these new visitors from the stars. 3 weeks had passed since the Eternal Seeker first entered orbit around the mysterious blue planet. What had begun as a routine cataloging mission had evolved into something more complex. The initial dismissal of the ruins as primitive and unremarkable was becoming harder to maintain as evidence mounted to the contrary. "Officer," Nari stood at the edge of an immense crater, her environmental suit glinting in the morning sunlight. The crater stretched nearly 2 kilometers across, the unmistakable result of a massive asteroid impact that must have occurred thousands of years ago. Yet, at its center, like a defiant monument to impossibility, stood a tower. While damaged, its core structure remained intact, rising 20 stories above the devastated landscape. "This shouldn't be possible," she muttered into her comm unit. No building constructed by a pre-spaceflight civilization should have survived an impact of this magnitude. Nari's scanner hummed as she approached the structure, its fractured walls still somehow supporting the impossible weight above. The readout showed materials she recognized: concrete, steel, glass, but something about their composition was off. The molecular structure appeared to have properties her scanner couldn't fully identify. Meanwhile, 500 kilometers to the east, researcher Han was making equally puzzling discoveries. In what appeared to be an ancient research complex, he had uncovered materials that defied explanation. The thin sheets of an unknown alloy showed absolutely no signs of oxidation or degradation, despite having been exposed to the elements for millennia. "Try to break it," Han said to his assistant, who obligingly attempted to cut the material with a laser tool. The beam scattered harmlessly across the surface. Increasing the power only resulted in the tool overheating while the mysterious material remained unmarked. Han carefully documented everything, his antennae twitching with growing excitement. This wasn't the technology of a primitive species. This was something else entirely. As the planet's sun dipped below the horizon, painting the alien sky in shades of deep purple and crimson, Jin received encrypted communications from both Nari and Han. Their discoveries added to her own growing collection of anomalies that didn't fit the official narrative. The three met in Jin's research pod after most of the expedition had settled in for the night cycle. The small space was crowded with holographic displays showing findings from across the planet. "Something isn't adding up," Jin said, her scales shifting to a deep blue that indicated concern among her species. "These primitive constructions contain sophisticated elements our sensors initially missed. Look at these energy conduits we found beneath the northern city. They're still carrying traces of power after 50,000 years. Nari nodded, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence as she processed the information. "The structure I found today shouldn't exist. Our simulations show it should have been vaporized by the asteroid impact, yet there it stands. Han added his own findings, pulling up a detailed hologram of the mysterious material. And this, I've run every analysis we have. The closest match is the hull material of our most advanced warships, but even that doesn't explain all its properties. Han swept his hand across the display, changing it to show something else, a series of strange symbols arranged in repeating patterns. And look at this. I've found recurring symbols throughout different continents. They appear to be a form of language, but unlike any we've catalogued before. The symbols floated in the air between them, curved lines intersecting with dots and dashes in complex arrangements. They were found in identical formations on opposite sides of the planet, Han continued, as if they were meant to be instructions of some kind. Instructions for what? Nari asked. Jin's scales flickered with blue-green uncertainty. That's what we need to find out. The next morning, during the official expedition conference, the three researchers presented their findings to the Leadership Council. Commander Sun, a veteran explorer with hundreds of dead worlds on his record, listened with growing impatience, his massive armored crest rising and falling with barely contained frustration. These findings represent anomalies worthy of further investigation, Jin argued, displaying the evidence they had gathered. Commander Sun's crest fully extended, a sign of authority and dismissal among his kind. What you've presented is enthusiastic overinterpretation of standard ruins. The Confederation has catalogued hundreds of extinct civilizations across 17 sectors. Materials that seem unusual are often explained by unique planetary conditions. But sir, protested Nari, the tower in the impact crater was likely protected by geographical features that have since eroded. Sun interrupted. Your own scans show an unusual mineral composition in that region that could have dispersed the impact energy. Han attempted to argue about the symbols, but Sun dismissed those as well. Coincidental patterns. Your pattern-seeking minds find meaning where there is none. This expedition will continue according to standard protocols, and we depart in 6 days. As the meeting disbanded, Day approached Jin, his mandibles clicking softly. Be careful, he whispered. Commander Sun has built his reputation on efficient processing of dead worlds. He doesn't appreciate complications. That night, unable to accept the dismissal of their findings, Jin and Tay met at the edge of the camp. I've been analyzing those. Energy readings, Tay said quietly. They're strongest in the northern complex, near what we think was an underground transportation hub. Then that's where we're going, Jin replied, using the cover of a minor dust storm that had kicked up around sunset. The two slipped away from the main camp. Their personal transport skimmer hummed quietly as they traveled 15 kilometers to a partially excavated entrance that the initial survey teams had marked but not fully explored. The entrance led downward at a steep angle. Emergency lights cast eerie blue shadows as they descended deeper than any team had gone before. The air grew still, undisturbed for millennia until their arrival. Look at the walls, whispered Tay. They're perfectly preserved. Jin ran her scanner along the smooth surface. These aren't just walls, they're integrated systems. There are conduits and components embedded throughout. They followed the corridor until it opened into a vast circular chamber. Unlike the ruins above, this room appeared untouched by time, clean, preserved as if it had been sealed away waiting for their arrival. Strange devices lined the walls, their purpose impossible to determine. At the center stood a console of some kind, its surface made of the same indestructible material Han had discovered. Should we touch it? Tay asked, his natural caution evident in his voice. Before Jin could answer, their presence triggered something. A soft hum began to build around them, vibrating through the floor and up into their bodies. Without warning, lights activated in sequence around the perimeter of the room, illuminating intricate patterns on the walls, the same symbols Han had documented. It's responding to us, Jin whispered, her scales shifting to bright green with excitement and fear. As they cautiously approached the central console, the humming intensified. The symbols on the walls began to glow with an inner light, pulsing, in rhythm like a silent language speaking across time. "This isn't a ruin," Tay said, his voice filled with awe. "It's a machine. And I think it's waking up." The console surface suddenly illuminated, revealing a complex array of controls that hadn't been visible before. In the center, a depression shaped unlike anything they had encountered began to fill with a swirling luminescent liquid that defied gravity, forming intricate patterns before their eyes. Jin and Tay stood transfixed, watching as the ancient technology of a supposedly primitive species came to life around them, challenging everything they thought they knew about the lost civilization, and perhaps about their place in the galaxy's history. The unexpected illumination froze Jin and Tay in place. The air itself seemed to vibrate with potential energy, as the ancient machinery hummed to life around them. Neither dared move as the center of the room began to shimmer, particles of light coalescing into a three-dimensional projection hovering. A meter above the floor. At first it was just geometric shapes, cubes, spheres, and pyramids arranging and rearranging themselves in complex mathematical patterns. The shapes rotated, merged, and separated in what seemed like a deliberate sequence. "It's responding to our presence," whispered Tay, his voice barely audible over the soft hum of the awakening technology. His sensor equipment went haywire, readings oscillating wildly as it tried to analyze energy signatures, unlike anything in the Confederation database. Jin's scales had shifted to a pale yellow, the color of wonder among her species. This technology shouldn't exist, not from a civilization this old. The geometric shapes suddenly accelerated their movements, spinning faster and faster until they blurred together into a pulsing sphere of light. Then, with a flash that momentarily blinded the two researchers, the sphere collapsed and reformed into a new pattern. Unfamiliar characters appeared in the projection, complex symbols with interlocking components that reminded Jin of the markings they'd found throughout the ruins. The characters floated and rearranged themselves, as if searching for something. "It's trying to communicate," Jin realized. She cautiously activated her universal translator, though she doubted it would recognize a language that predated the Confederation by tens of thousands of years. The projection paused, then began cycling through different patterns and symbol sets with increasing speed, hundreds, then thousands of different writing systems flashing by in seconds. Ancient-looking pictographs gave way to flowing scripts, then to angular runes, then to dot patterns and countless others. Suddenly, the cycling stopped. The hologram flickered and reformed into clear, perfectly formed characters in Confederation. "Standard language. Welcome, visitors," the message read, hovering in the air before them. "Identity verification required." Jin and Tay exchanged glances of disbelief. For a 50,000-year-old system, to not only activate but display modern Confederation language was impossible. It would be like finding a Stone Age cave painting that could speak in perfect modern dialect. Jin cautiously stepped forward, her heart pounding. The floor illuminated beneath her feet, scanning her from toe to head with a grid of light. "We are researchers from the Galactic Confederation," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The system paused, the message blinking several times as if processing her response. The room's lights pulsed in rhythm with the central projection. Then new words formed. First contact protocol initiated. This facility was created by humans to preserve knowledge until worthy successors emerged. Tay nearly dropped his scanner. "Humans," he whispered. "That's what they called themselves." Before Jin could respond, the central console expanded its projection, showing a figure, bipedal with 2 arms, a single head, and no visible exoskeletal features. The proportions matched the doorways and furniture they'd found in the ruins. "Is that a human?" Jin asked, addressing the system directly. The hologram nodded, a gestural communication they'd seen in other species. "Correct. This is the standard human form before the Great Transition." More images appeared around them. Humans using tools, building structures, creating art, launching primitive spacecraft. The images showed a rapid progression of technology, condensing what must have been thousands of years of development into a brief visual summary. "Great Transition?" Tay asked. "What happened to them?" The hologram shifted again. "Data restricted, pending further verification of visitor intent." This facility has remained dormant for 49,873 standard years. Activation protocols were triggered by your presence. Jin couldn't believe what she was hearing. You've been waiting all this time. For someone to find you. Waiting, observing, evaluating. The words appeared in sequence. This is one of 12,158 preservation nodes left by humanity across this world. Full network activation. Awaits authorization. Jin and Tae spent hours questioning the system, learning what little it would reveal about the mysterious humans. When they finally emerged from the underground facility. Twin moons hung high in the night sky, bathing the ruins in silver light. "We have to report this," Tae said as they hurried back toward the base camp. "This changes everything." Jin nodded, but felt a flutter of anxiety. Commander Sun won't be pleased. This complicates his neat categorization of yet another dead world. When they arrived at camp, they found it buzzing with activity despite the late hour. Several research teams had returned early from their expeditions, all reporting unusual energy signatures from various sites. They went straight to Chief Researcher Dae, bypassing the normal chain of command. Dae listened to their account, his mandibles clicking rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. "Show me your recordings," he demanded. When Jin played back their encounter with the ancient system, Dae's inner eyelids closed in what his species considered reverent shock. The High Council must be informed immediately. Despite the late hour, Commander Sun was summoned from his quarters. The massive alien stormed into the command center, his armored crest fully extended in irritation. "This had better be important enough to disturb my rest cycle," he growled. When he saw the recordings, his crest slowly flattened, a sign of stunned disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered, using a rarely heard harmonizing voice his species reserved. For moments of religious significance, by morning the entire expedition was mobilized. Commander Sun, now fully engaged, ordered a full analysis of the underground facility. He deployed all 20 research teams to sites where similar energy signatures had been detected. "I want every piece of data we can gather," he ordered. "If this preservation node is one of over 12,000, we need to locate as many as possible." Jin and Tae led a team back to the original facility, accompanied by Dae and a security detail. As they approached the entrance, Jin noticed something different. The symbols along the corridor walls were now glowing faintly, illuminating their path. "It's more active than yesterday," she observed. When they reached the central chamber, the console was already illuminated, as if expecting them. The holographic interface activated immediately, displaying a map of the planet with thousands of glowing points. "What are those?" Dae asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his natural caution. "Preservation nodes activating," the system responded. "Global network initialization at 27% and rising." On their communicators, reports began flooding in from teams across the planet. Every ruin, every structure they had dismissed as primitive was showing signs of activation. Hidden technology was revealing itself beneath crumbling facades. Back on the Eternal Seeker, monitoring stations detected unusual energy patterns across the entire planet. What had appeared to be a dead world was now lighting up with complex technological signatures that rivaled or exceeded the Confederation's own capabilities. By midday, Commander Sun had ordered all teams to return to the ship. An emergency meeting was called in the main conference chamber, now packed with every senior researcher and team leader. "We're dealing with something unprecedented," Sun announced, his earlier dismissiveness completely gone. "This human civilization appears to have left behind a planetary-scale network of advanced technology." A junior researcher raised a trembling appendage. "Sir, our long-range scanners are picking up activation signals from the fourth and second planets as well, and several of the moons." A stunned silence fell over the room. The scale of what they were witnessing was almost impossible to comprehend. Dae stepped forward, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "The preservation nodes are communicating with each other. They're sharing data about us." He activated a holographic display showing signal patterns between the awakening nodes. "They're exchanging everything they've observed since our arrival. Our scans, our communications, our behaviors." The realization hit Jin like a physical blow. "They've been monitoring us," she gasped. "This entire time we've been the ones under study." Commander Sun's crest flattened completely against his skull, a sign of profound humility rarely seen in his kind. "We came to catalogue what we thought was another extinct species," he said quietly. "Instead, we may have awakened something that was merely waiting." Outside the ship's viewports, the surface of the once seemingly dead planet twinkled with thousands of new lights as more preservation nodes activated. Whatever the humans had left behind, it was watching them now, judging them, perhaps deciding their fate. And the Confederation expedition could only wonder what verdict these ancient yet impossibly advanced beings might render. The Eternal Seeker's main conference chamber had never been so silent. 73 beings representing 18 different Confederation species sat motionless, watching as the holographic display showed them the impossible. The activated systems across the planet had begun transmitting vast amounts of data to the ship, revealing humanity's true story in vivid detail. "These weren't primitive beings," explained researcher Min, breaking the stunned silence. The small, multi-limbed scientist gestured at the holographic timeline floating in the center of the room. Their technological development accelerated at an unprecedented rate. In just a few thousand years, they advanced from simple tools to interstellar travel. The timeline showed images of early humans using crude stone implements, then rapidly progressing through metallurgy, industrial machinery, primitive computational devices, and eventually achieving powered flight. What took other species tens of thousands of years, humans had accomplished in mere millennia. "Impossible," muttered one of the senior scientists, his tentacles twisting in agitation. "No species evolves technology that quickly. The data must be corrupted." Commander Sun shook his massive head, his armored crest now held flat in humility. "The data has been verified across multiple preservation nodes. We must accept what we're seeing." On the main view screen, a new entity had appeared, a holographic interface that had organized itself from the combined data of all active nodes. It appeared as a simplified human figure, composed of intricate flowing light patterns. It called itself Caretaker and had requested direct communication with the Confederation expedition. "You have questions," the Caretaker stated, its voice somehow both mechanical and warm. "I am authorized to provide answers now that initial assessment protocols have been satisfied." Jin stepped forward, her scales cycling through colors of excitement and apprehension. "What happened to the humans? Did they suffer some catastrophe?" The Caretaker's form shifted slightly, reconfiguring into patterns that seemed to convey amusement. "No catastrophe. Humanity chose its path deliberately. What you see around you are not ruins of a failed civilization, but seeds carefully planted." The hologram expanded to show the entire solar system. Glowing points indicated active human technology on multiple planets and moons. "These relics weren't remnants of extinction," the Caretaker continued, "but carefully placed technological seeds, designed to be discovered only by species with the right combination of intelligence and ethical development." The chamber erupted with questions, but Day raised his primary limbs for silence. "What do you mean by seeds?" he asked. The Caretaker's form shifted again, becoming more complex. "Consider a forest. Advanced species leave knowledge for those who follow, just as trees leave seeds. Humans scattered their knowledge across this system, protected within simple-seeming shells, waiting for the right conditions to germinate." On the view screen, images appeared of what the expedition had initially dismissed as primitive structures. The images then transformed, showing the same structures with their true nature revealed. Advanced technological complexes disguised as ruins. "The disguise was deliberate?" asked Tay, fascinated despite his natural caution. "Yes, humanity learned through bitter experience that giving advanced technology to unprepared species leads to destruction. The shells appear primitive to those who would misuse what they find. Only those who approach with respect and curiosity trigger the awakening protocols." Han stood up, his research tablet clutched tightly. "I've been analyzing the data downloads. The technological principles described here defy everything we understand about physical laws. According to our science, much of this should be impossible." The Caretaker seemed to nod. "Humans developed technologies your Confederation has considered impossible. They created true artificial consciousness, manipulated matter at fundamental levels, and eventually discovered dimensional transit. A stunned murmur ran through the assembled researchers. Dimensional transit, travel between parallel realities, was considered theoretical at best in Confederation science. "This cannot be true," insisted one of the elder scientists, his exoskeleton clicking with agitation. No biological species could achieve such things. In response, the caretaker projected a new series of images, massive orbital structures that dwarfed anything the Confederation had built, machines that manipulated the fabric of space-time itself, and energy sources that drew power from what appeared to be other dimensions. 50,000 years ago, humanity stood where your Confederation stands now, the caretaker explained. They faced the same limitations, the same questions about what was possible. The hologram shifted to show humans working alongside machines of increasing sophistication. They created partners, artificial minds that helped them overcome their biological limitations. Together, they explored possibilities beyond physical constraints. A new image appeared, humans interfacing directly with their technology, their bodies gradually changing, becoming something different. "Most astonishing," said Jin, her voice filled with awe, "is that they didn't die out, did they? They transformed themselves." "Correct," confirmed the caretaker. "Humanity ascended to a different state of existence, what you might call transcendence. The final images showed beings of pure energy, no longer bound by physical form, moving freely between dimensions that the Confederation species could barely comprehend." Nari, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "If they advanced beyond physical form, why leave anything behind? Why create all this?" She gestured around at the planet below. The caretaker's form grew more complex, shifting into patterns of increasing intricacy. Because, despite their transformation, humans never forgot where they came from. They remembered being small, fragile beings looking up at the stars. They remembered the long, difficult path of evolution and discovery. The hologram paused, then continued more softly. And they remembered being alone. The implications of this statement hung in the air. Commander Sun stepped forward, his massive form seeming somehow diminished in the presence of what they were learning. "Are they still out there, these ascended humans?" he asked. "They exist in ways your languages lack words to describe," the caretaker answered. "They move through realities you cannot yet perceive. But yes, they watch, they wait, they hope. Hope." "For what?" asked Day. "For others to join them." The caretaker's form expanded, filling the chamber with points of light like stars. Humans were the first in this galaxy to make the transition, but they did not wish to be the last. They left behind these seeds of knowledge so that other worthy species might follow. Min suddenly understood. The tests, our dismissal of the ruins our curiosity despite our assumptions, you were evaluating whether we were ready. "Yes," confirmed the caretaker. "Had you simply catalogued and departed, the systems would have remained dormant. Had you attempted to take technology by force, countermeasures would have activated. It was your curiosity, your willingness to question your own assumptions, that triggered the awakening." Jin felt a chill run down her spine. "So all this time, while we thought we were studying ancient ruins, you were being studied in return," completed the caretaker, "and you have been found worthy of the next revelation." The hologram expanded once more, transforming the entire chamber into what appeared to be a vast library. Around them floated countless symbols, each containing what must have been enormous stores of information, the collected knowledge of humanity's journey. "This is humanity's gift to the Confederation," said the caretaker. "The beginning of a path that leads to where they have gone, should you choose to accept it." The assembled researchers looked at one another, the magnitude of the moment weighing on them all. They had come expecting to find yet another dead civilization. Instead, they had discovered that humans, these supposedly primitive beings, had not only survived but had transcended the very boundaries of existence itself, and now they were offering to show the way. The Eternal. Seeker trembled slightly as energy waves rippled across the planet below. From orbit, the crew watched in awe as the final revelation unfolded. All the installations they had discovered simultaneously activated, connecting into a vast network that spread across continents and oceans. The supposedly primitive structures they had dismissed days earlier transformed before their eyes, shedding their ancient appearances like outdated clothing. Massive towers rose from beneath the soil, their surfaces gleaming with otherworldly materials. Domes of energy shimmered into existence over what had appeared to be empty plains. The ruins of cities rearranged themselves, buildings shifting and changing as dormant technology awakened after 50 millennia of patient waiting. "The power readings are off the scale," reported the ship's engineer, his voice trembling. "Whatever energy source they're using, it's nothing in our database." Commander Sun ordered immediate deployment of all available observation drones. The small machines streaked through the atmosphere, transmitting images that left the crew speechless. The primitive-looking structures had transformed, revealing advanced technology seamlessly integrated into the planet's ecosystem. Rivers flowed through power generation systems that left the water cleaner than before. Forests surrounded computational arrays that used living plants as components. The entire planet was becoming a single, integrated machine of breathtaking complexity and beauty. "We're receiving a transmission," announced the communications officer. "It's coming from everywhere." The main view screen activated, showing the caretaker. Its form had evolved, becoming more complex yet somehow more relatable. When it spoke, its voice resonated with a warmth that seemed impossible for a machine. "The network is now fully operational," it announced. "The time has come for complete disclosure." The ship's systems received a transmission request unlike anything they had encountered. After careful security checks, they authorized a direct feed out of the ship's holographic chamber. The senior staff gathered there, watching as the caretaker's presence filled the room, surrounding them with a three-dimensional representation of human history that they could walk through and experience. Humanity departed physical form 50,000 years ago, the caretaker began, its voice coming from everywhere at once, but not before establishing a guidance system for younger species. The Confederation is the 17th potential successor group to discover this world. Jin moved through the holographic display, watching scenes of earlier visitors, strange beings with physiologies vastly different from any Confederation species. Some appeared insectoid, others gaseous. Still others defied easy categorization. "What happened to the others?" asked Commander Sun, his massive form somehow small in the presence of humanity's legacy. The caretaker's form shifted, showing the fates of previous visitors. Some scenes showed species achieving technological marvels, their civilizations blossoming into something greater. Others showed worlds torn apart by war, species using what they had found to destroy rather than create. Some followed the path of ascension, Caretaker explained. Others were not ready and were guided toward different destinies. The final images showed species working together, forming a community among the stars that transcended individual differences. 4 of the 16 previous discoverers achieved ascension. 7 more are still progressing toward that potential. 5 destroyed themselves despite our interventions. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Confederation wasn't just being offered knowledge, it was being judged worthy of continuing to exist. "Your initial dismissal of our achievements concerned us," the caretaker continued, "but your subsequent curiosity demonstrates potential worth cultivating." A new holographic display appeared in the center of the room, a small object that appeared organic and technological at once, pulsing with inner light. "This is the interface," explained the caretaker. "It contains a fraction of humanity's knowledge, carefully calibrated to your current level of development. It represents the beginning of a potential partnership." Tay studied the object with professional curiosity. "A partnership with whom? The caretaker program?" "No," the hologram replied, "with humanity itself." The chamber darkened, and suddenly they were surrounded by stars. Not a simulation, but somehow a direct view into another dimension of reality. Among the stars moved beings of pure energy, complex patterns of light that somehow conveyed a sense of consciousness and purpose despite their alien nature. "Ascended humanity continues to explore the universe in ways your science cannot yet comprehend," said the caretaker. "They have discovered wonders beyond imagination and truths about existence that transcend physical limitations." The vision shifted, showing vast impossible structures existing between dimensions, civilizations operating on principles that defied conventional physics, and beings of pure thought communicating across the gulf between galaxies. The system presents you with humanity's legacy, the caretaker continued as the vision faded, returning them to the chamber. Knowledge that could fundamentally transform your understanding of existence and eventually lead you toward ascension. But the path is not without danger. Historical images showed the humans themselves struggling with their own technological development, weapons of terrible power, environmental catastrophes, ethical dilemmas that threatened to tear their civilization. Apart, humanity nearly destroyed itself multiple times before finding balance, the caretaker explained. Each species must navigate its own challenges. We can guide but cannot force your decisions. The interface floated before them, waiting. Its surface rippled with patterns of light that seemed to respond to their thoughts, a technology so advanced it bordered on magical. The choice is yours, caretaker concluded. You may join the intergalactic community of evolved consciousness, including those you called humans. But understand this responsibility. Knowledge without wisdom leads to destruction. The Confederation. Leaders looked at one another, the weight of the decision pressing down on them all. This wasn't just about their expedition or even their individual species. It was about the future of all Confederation worlds. Commander Sun turned to Day, his crest flattening in deference. As chief researcher, your insight would be valued. Day's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. We came here expecting to catalogue remnants of a dead world. Instead, we've found something that could transform everything we know. He gestured to the interface. There are risks, certainly, but to turn away from this opportunity would be to deny our fundamental purpose as explorers and scientists. Nari nodded in agreement. Think of what this could mean for medicine, for quality of life across Confederation worlds. Or for weapons, countered Tay, ever cautious. Power like this could tear the Confederation apart if misused. As the senior, staff debated, Jin found herself drawn to the interface. Its pulsing light seemed to call to her specifically, resonating with something deep within. In its shifting patterns, she saw not just knowledge but understanding, a wisdom that transcended mere information. The debate around her faded as she reached a personal conclusion. This was larger than politics or science. It was about evolution itself, not just of technology but of consciousness. The humans had left this gift not as a test or trap, but as a genuine act of compassion for those who would follow in their footsteps. Jin stepped forward, the action silencing the debate. With quiet determination, she addressed the caretaker directly. We accept this gift with humility, she said, her scales glowing with a depth of color her species reserved for profound spiritual moments. And we honor those who prepared it for us. As she spoke, she sensed approval, not just from the caretaker, program, but from something beyond, as if distant eyes were watching this moment unfold across the barrier between dimensions. The interface will be transported to your vessel, the caretaker announced. It will guide your initial studies and open communication channels with other species who have accepted the human legacy. The path of ascension is neither quick nor easy, but you will not walk it alone. Around them, the ancient human technology hummed with renewed purpose. The planet below, once thought dead and abandoned, pulsed with life and intelligence. The structures continued their transformation, becoming something that was neither fully machine nor fully organic, but a harmonious blend of both. As the Eternal, Seeker prepared to depart, carrying its precious cargo back to Confederation space, Jin stood at the observation deck, watching the blue planet recede into the distance. She wondered what changes awaited them all, what challenges and discoveries lay ahead on the path the humans had shown them, and somewhere beyond the veil of conventional reality, she sensed that the ascended humans were watching with hope. The children of the stars they had once been had grown up and moved on, but they had not forgotten their origins. They had left behind not just knowledge, but a bridge, a way for others to follow. The Eternal Seeker engaged its drives, accelerating toward home. But Jin knew they weren't just returning to the familiar. They were heading toward a future forever changed by the discovery that those ancient, primitive relics had never been remnants of humanity's end. They had been the seeds of a new beginning, the end.